Jimmy Page, a rock and roll legend, is highly revered in the world of guitar as an iconic member of Led Zeppelin, one of the most famous bands globally. He has captivated fans worldwide and earned deep respect from fans and fellow musicians, despite his unparalleled influence on rock music. There have been rumors circulating about the influential guitarist's life. In a recent video, Jimmy Page revealed details that shed light on some of these rumors. Jimmy Page has graced the cover of numerous guitar magazines worldwide and has been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice. In the UK, he was the most sought-after guitarist for many years. Despite his immense success, Jimmy Page valued his privacy and kept his personal life private, adding to his air of mystery. Jimmy Page, born James Patrick Page, entered the world on January 9, 1944, in Heston, Middlesex, London. His parents, James Patrick Page and Patricia Elizabeth Gaffin, moved the family to Epsom, Surrey, in 1952, where he attended Epsom County Pound Lane Primary School as an 8-year-old, and later Uley County Secondary School in West UL at the age of 11. His father worked in a company, and his mother was employed as a doctor's secretary at the age of 12. Jimmy started playing the guitar after discovering one in the house they had moved into. He received some guitar lessons in Kingston later on. This early start marked the beginning of Jimmy Page's remarkable journey in the world of music. Growing up, there were not many guitarists around, and I had just one guitarist at my school who taught me my first chords. After that, I continued learning on my own, often turning to records for guidance as I grew bored with traditional methods. My journey with the guitar became deeply personal, and I drew inspiration from a guitarist named Rod Wyatt, who was slightly older than me, together with another musician named Pete Calvert. We would often practice at my house, where I spent countless hours honing my skills and became inseparable from my beloved guitar. Despite my dedication, I faced challenges such as not being allowed to bring my guitar into class, leading to it being taken away but returned to me after class. Influenced by Bert Yen, John Renbourn, Elmore James, and B.B. King, I developed a profound interest in folk music and the blues, eventually joining a skiffle group and appearing on Hugh Weldon's talent show on BBC One. During this time, I saved up from odd summer jobs to purchase a Hofner President acoustic guitar, which I played on the show. When asked about my future plans, I expressed my desire to pursue biological research to find a cure for cancer if it hadn't been discovered by then. However, I ultimately decided to leave school at the age of 14 to focus on music and joined a band called the Crusaders. Touring with them for nearly 2 years during my time with the Crusaders, I also contributed to Neil Christian's records, including the single The Road to Love in November 1962. Fortunately, I fell ill with glandular fever while touring with Neil Christian, leading me to take a break from music and shift my focus to painting. Subsequently, I enrolled in Sutton Art College in Surrey, where I found a new direction and a shift from my previous pursuits. Reflecting on this period, I mentioned that I traveled extensively on a bus for 2 years after leaving school, but due to declining health, I returned to art college for a fresh start. This change in direction stemmed from the realization that my dedicated approach to playing the guitar was taking a toll on my health, leading me to experience glandular fever every 2 months as a result. I found myself living on a meager $10 a week for the next 18 months, focusing on regaining my strength while still in college. Jimmy Page occasionally performed at the Marquee alongside bands such as Alexis Corner, Blue Ink, Eric Clapton, and Jeff Beck. During one of his performances, John Gibb from the Silhouettes noticed Jimmy and invited him to assist in recording singles for EMI, including The Worrying Kind, after experimenting with different groups like Carter Lewis and the Southerners, Mike Hurst and The Method, and Mickey Finn and the Blue Men. Jimmy decided to pursue full-time session work. Fortunately, Mike Leander from Decca Records offered Jimmy regular studio work, and his first session for the label involved recording Diamonds by Jet Harris and Tony Meehan, which reached #1 on the singles chart in early 1963. As a session guitarist, Jimmy was known as Lil Jim P to avoid confusion with another renowned English session guitarist, Big Jim Sullivan, due to his skills. Jimmy was often called upon as a backup or second guitarist for recording artists in the beginning. He was given the freedom to play as he pleased, as he couldn't read music at the time. Eventually, Jimmy became the favored session guitarist of record producer Shel Talmy, leading to opportunities to play for prominent bands such as The Who and The Kinks. For The Kinks' first album, he played acoustic 12-string guitar on 2 tracks and also contributed rhythm guitar for The Who's debut single, I Can't Explain, and lead guitar on another track. In 1965, Jimmy secured a position from Stone's manager Andrew Loog Oldham to serve as the main producer and A&R person for the new Immediate Records label. This role allowed him to play on or produce songs for artists like John Mayall, Nico, Chris, Farlow, Twice as Much, and Clapton, as well as producing Dana Gillespie's single Thank You Boy around the same time. Jimmy collaborated with American singer Jackie Dushannon briefly to write songs. He also worked with Big Jim Sullivan on various albums, including John Williams' The Marine Wishful album, Donovan Leitch's Sunshine, Superman, and Engelbert Humperdinck's Release Me. Furthermore, Jimmy contributed his guitar skills to tracks for artists such as Johnny Hallyday, Al Stewart, and Joe Cocker from 1970 onwards. Jimmy played lead guitar on 10 Roy Harper tracks, totaling 81 minutes of music in 1974. Jimmy recorded with Keith Richards on guitar and vocals, working on a track called Scarlet with Rick Dree on bass and Bruce Rowland on drums when asked about the songs he played on, especially those where his role is debated. Jimmy often mentions that it's tough to remember exactly what he did because he was involved in so many sessions at that time. In a radio interview, he mentioned that he was really busy doing 3 sessions a day and 15 sessions a week, which could involve playing with a band, working on film music, or participating in a folk session. Jimmy finally stopped doing studio work when Stax Records' influence led to more brass and orchestral arrangements in music. Reducing the focus on guitars, he mentioned that his time as a session player was like going to a really good school. As he played in numerous sessions daily, without knowing beforehand what he would play, despite some bad sessions, he learned valuable lessons and decided to quit when he started getting requests for music, finding it too ridiculous. Interestingly, a week after quitting, he joined the Yardbirds initially. Being a session musician was enjoyable due to the strict studio rules. One had to play flawlessly once the song started. Jimmy was asked to join the Yardbirds in 1964, after Eric Clapton left, but he turned it down to stay loyal to his friend. When Clapton officially left in 1965, Jimmy was offered the spot but recommended Jeff Beck instead. In 1966, Jimmy Beck and others recorded Beck's Bolero, sparking the idea of a supergroup which they planned to include John Entwistle and Keith Moon, but faced challenges in finding a vocalist and dealing with contracts. It was during this time that Moon first suggested the name Led Zeppelin, inspired by a comment from Entwistle about the project's potential success. Shortly before joining the band, Jimmy went to a Yardbirds concert at Oxford and offered to replace Paul Samuel Smith, who was leaving, and the group accepted initially. Jimmy played bass, but later switched to twin-lead guitar with Beck, despite their musical potential. Conflicts arose due to constant touring and limited success. While Jimmy, Beck, and Clapton were in the Yardbirds, they never played together simultaneously. After Beck left, the Yardbirds continued as a quartet with Jimmy on lead guitar. They released an album called Little Games, which didn't do well commercially, but their live shows became more intense and experimental. The performances in the late 1960s set the groundwork for the distinctive Led Zeppelin style. After the departure of Ralph and McCarty in 1968, Jimmy had to find replacements due to the incomplete Scandinavian tour. To fill the vacancies, he brought in vocalist Robert Plant, drummer John Bonham, and John Paul Jones to form the new Yardbirds, eventually evolving into Led Zeppelin. The name change to Led Zeppelin was inspired by a joke and was facilitated by manager Peter Grant to avoid mispronunciation. From the start, Jimmy had a clear vision for Led Zeppelin, drawing from his experiences with the Yardbirds and aiming for a unique blend of blues, hard rock, and acoustic music with heavy choruses. Led Zeppelin's unique style led to enormous commercial success. With over 200 to 300 million albums sold worldwide and all 9 studio albums hitting the top 10 on the Billboard chart, the band's influence on shaping heavy metal and hard rock was significant, largely due to Jimmy's impact as a producer and musician. Despite their commercial success, Led Zeppelin also gained a reputation for excess, particularly during the late 1970s. Outside of the band, Jimmy was involved in relationships with French model Charlotte Martin, with whom he had a daughter named Scarlett Page, and in a well-known one-year relationship with a young fan named Laurie Maddox. Led Zeppelin faced a significant loss with John Bonham's death in 1980, which deeply affected Jimmy and initially made it difficult for him to play the guitar. After taking a break, Jimmy Page returned to music, focusing on various short-term projects, solo work, and film soundtracks. In addition, he became involved in charitable activities. He celebrated his 40th birthday in January 1984, a milestone he once doubted he would reach. Sources close to Jimmy at the time hinted at the possibility of a new band and tour. Shortly after, Jimmy expressed his reflections on the influence of blues and early rock musicians on his music, seeing potential for new and exciting music to emerge. He then collaborated with Roy Harper for the 1984 record Whatever Happened to Jugila and performed at folk festivals under various aliases, such as the McGregors and themselves. In the same year, he also collaborated with Robert Plant and the Honey Drippers for their album The Honey Drippers, Volume 1, and worked with John Paul Jones on the film soundtrack Scream for Help. Following this, Jimmy joined forces with Paul Rodgers for 2 albums as The Firm, releasing their first self-titled album in 1985, which featured hits like Radioactive and Satisfaction Guaranteed, reaching number 17 on the Billboard Pop Albums chart and earning gold status in the U.S. They released Mean Business in 1986. Before disbanding after touring, it was during the tour with The Firm that Jimmy found love again, meeting Patricia, a model who was working as a waitress in a restaurant in New Orleans at the time. After the conclusion of The Firm's 1986 U.S. tour, Patricia went to London with Jimmy. A couple of months later, in December 1986, they got married. They share a son, James Patrick Page, born in April 1988. But the couple later split up in 1995, without disclosing the reason. Subsequently, Jimmy tied the knot with Jana Gomez Paracha, whom he met in Brazil during the No Quarter tour. Despite the significant age difference, they stayed together for 13 years, producing children named Zofia Jade, Ash, and Josen, before finally splitting up, despite challenges in his personal life. Jimmy remained positive and continued to succeed in his career. He engaged in other ventures, including session work for Graham Nash, Stephen Stills, and the Rolling Stones. Jimmy also briefly reunited with his former Yardbirds bandmates for the album Box of Frogs, Strangeland in 1986, a solo album named Outrider in 1988. His contributions from Robert Plant and John Miles on the opening track, Wasting My Time. In 1985, Jimmy Page reunited with his former Led Zeppelin bandmates for several live shows, including a notable performance at the Live Aid concert alongside Phil Collins and Tony Thompson on drums. Following this, in 1988, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, and Jason Bonham, John Bonham's son, played at the Atlantic Records' 40th anniversary show. In 1990, Jimmy surprised Plant by joining him in a performance at a concert. And later that year, he also appeared with Aerosmith at the Monsters of Rock Festival. Additionally, Jimmy Page jammed with ex-members of Led Zeppelin at Jason Bonham's wedding. And in 1993, he collaborated with David Coverdale from Whitesnake for the Coverdale-Page album and a tour in Japan. By 1994, Jimmy Page and Robert Plant reunited for a show on MTV's Unplugged series, which was a major success, leading to a successful tour. Supporting No Quarter, their collaboration continued, culminating in the release of the album Walking into Clarksdale in 1998, featuring Grammy-winning tracks such as Most High and Please Read the Letter. Apart from his musical endeavors, Jimmy Page dedicated time to improving the Led Zeppelin music collection and participated in charity events, including one for the Action for Brazil's Children Trust, established by his wife in 1998. In the same year, he contributed guitar to Puff Daddy's song Come With Me, which sampled Led Zeppelin's Kashmir and featured on the Godzilla movie soundtrack. They even performed the song on Saturday Night Live, following a charity show where he was joined by the Black Crowes. Jimmy teamed up with the band for 6 concerts in October 1999, featuring songs from Led Zeppelin as well as old blues and rock tunes. The last 2 shows in Los Angeles were recorded and released as a live album titled Live at the Greek in 2000. Post the live album release, Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes continued their collaboration, embarking on a tour with The Who in 2000. Although Jimmy departed before its completion in 2001, Jimmy Page performed Thank You with Fred Durst and Wes Scantlin at the MTV Europe Video Music Awards before reuniting with Robert Plant to record a song for a tribute album and perform at the Montreux Jazz Festival in 2005 in recognition of his charitable contributions. Jimmy Page was honored with the Officer of the Order of the British Empire (OBE) and became an honorary citizen of Rio de Janeiro. Furthermore, he received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award with Led Zeppelin in November 2006. Led Zeppelin was inducted into the UK Music Hall of Fame. The event was televised with notable fans like Roger Taylor, Slash, and many others in attendance. During an interview with the BBC regarding the induction, Jimmy Page discussed his plans for creating new music in 2007, mentioning an album idea he wanted to pursue. He also hinted at potential upcoming Led Zeppelin projects in December 2007. Subsequently, the remaining members of Led Zeppelin, along with John Bonham's son, Jason Bonham, participated in a charity concert at the O2 Arena in London, setting a world record for the highest demand for tickets, with an astounding 20 million requests for the reunion show on June 7, 2008. Following this, Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones joined the Foo Fighters at Wembley Stadium, where they closed the concert with performances of Rock and Roll and Ramble On. In the midst of these events, Jimmy Page was awarded an honorary doctorate from the University of Surrey at Guildford Cathedral during the 2008 Summer Olympics. Later, during the closing ceremony of the 2008 Summer Olympics, Jimmy Page performed with Leona Lewis and received a special award for peace from the United Nations in 2010. In the following years, Jimmy Page continued to make significant musical appearances, performing with Donovan at the Royal Albert Hall in London in 2011, surprising everyone by playing with the Black Crowes at the Shepherd's Bush Empire, and joining Roy Harper for his 70th birthday concert at London's Royal Festival Hall in the same year. Furthermore, a campaign was initiated by British politician Lisa Mensch to knight Jimmy Page in recognition of his musical contributions. This effort culminated in December 2012 when President Obama honored Jimmy, Robert Plant, and John Paul Jones at the Kennedy Center, acknowledging their impact on American culture through the arts. In the subsequent years, Led Zeppelin won a Grammy for Best Rock Album for Celebration Day, and Jimmy Page received an honorary doctorate from Berklee College of Music in Boston. However, an NME article in the same year mentioned that Plant was somewhat disappointed and confused by Jimmy in an ongoing Led Zeppelin disagreement, with Jimmy expressing frustration over reunion plans and Plant suggesting they collaborate acoustically moving forward. In September 2014, Jimmy Page, who hadn't embarked on a solo tour since 1988, announced plans to form a new band and perform songs from his entire career, indicating the possibility of touring and the intention to finalize the band lineup soon. Finally, in 2014, Jimmy Page began dating Scarlett Sable after meeting her at a poetry reading at a London bookshop, marking a significant personal development alongside his continued musical endeavors. The couple, consisting of Jimmy, who is now 80 years old, and Scarlett, who is 34, has been together for almost 9 years. They have worked together at Jimmy's London home Tower House since Scarlett was 25. In an interview, Scarlett described Jimmy as a funny family man, quite different from the media's portrayal of him. Scarlett emphasized their quiet life together, and the fact that despite their age gap, it doesn't affect their relationship. They prefer not to have big gatherings at home, with only Jimmy's kids and Scarlett's siblings visiting them as they enjoy their time together. Scarlett feels safe and inspired in their house and believes that Jimmy has made their relationship work despite his controversies. Despite Jimmy's outstanding music career and legacy, he has faced controversies, including his questionable relationship with Lori Maddox, who was 14 when they first met. There were also rumors about Jimmy's interest in Aleister Crowley, but there was no solid evidence of him being a Satanist. Additionally, there were claims about Led Zeppelin making a deal with the devil. But Jimmy declined to discuss his beliefs or magic, stating that he did not aim to influence others with his beliefs. It takes a significant amount of time and dedication to fully comprehend the extent of people's actions. Jimmy's global success sets him apart from most individuals in the industry. Despite his achievements, Jimmy remains driven to achieve more, as evidenced by his potential plans to release additional songs from his album with David Coverdale. A recent post on Jimmy's Facebook and Instagram pages discussed the possibility of releasing an expanded version of the album, hinting at the inclusion of tracks like Saccharine. The timing of Jimmy's decision to expand the album, a year after its 30th anniversary, raises questions about his motivation. David Coverdale previously expressed interest in releasing a box set of the album in 2018, but it seems the idea was eventually abandoned. Jimmy's journey from a young guitarist to a legendary rock icon has been marked by significant achievements and personal challenges. His influence extends beyond musicians to shaping the landscape of rock music, continuously reinventing himself, both musically and personally now, at 80. Jimmy remains a revered figure, passionate about music and finding happiness in his personal life.